I'm Ty Trumbull, and I handle the content here at Acquira. Much of our work is spent training acquisition entrepreneurs on the beginning of the process, how to find, appraise, and ultimately buy a business. The part that comes after closing the business is a little more mysterious for some acquisition entrepreneurs, simply because the process that comes after is different from business to business. That's why we like to bring you updates from acquisition entrepreneurs who have actually closed on a business of their own. Ken Lavertu recently closed on a granite company in Florida, and we'll be bringing you regular updates from Ken's journey because Ken was so impressed by Acquira's process that he actually became a partner in the company, which gives us a unique amount of access to him and his business. This time around, I wanted to talk to Ken about what his first month post-close was like, what unexpected things popped up, what he learned, and what advice he has for fellow AEs. Here's our conversation. So Ken, good to talk to you again. It's been a few weeks since you closed on your business. How long has it been?
Yep. Yeah, I think I'm on week 4.
So pretty much exactly a month. How's it been going for you so far?
Yeah, it's been every bit as challenging as they told me. So very excited about the future. Just got off the phone with a guy that wants to be eventually our operations director. He's very talented, has tons of experience in the granite industry. He's been with us for a little bit, not a lot, but very competent at what he does. And I'm moving him into field supervisor right now. So it just got me really fired up because he was talking about the direction he wants to take the company as far as the field supervising goes, and some ideas about the shop and ideas about the office. So I'm just very excited about the potential of the business, but it does come with its challenges. We've had to already work through some culture things. Just hired my people and culture person a couple weeks ago. So very excited about that. She starts the middle of next month.
Fantastic. What would have been like the big surprises during the process? Anything you weren't expecting?
Yeah, so I think the big surprise for me was how much accounting work needed to be done right at the beginning. We set out to work on a work in progress spreadsheet, and it was pretty difficult trying to figure out the formulas and how much was owed the seller, how much would be, owned by me once they finish the project. So that was pretty difficult. We even had the accountant on site trying to help us work through it, and it was the day of closing. So that took longer than we had expected to find out where all the open orders were and what stage they were at. So that was definitely a challenge. And then, when I applied for the loan, I had to come up with a new entity to purchase the business. And so when you do that, and I wasn't fully aware of all the work involved, and after we got our EIN number, that meant all of the open lines of credit that the seller had previously were all basically gone, and I had to reset all of that with all of our suppliers. They had to redo credit, and it took some time to do that, and a lot of process and a lot of time. Also, our payroll, since we had a new FEIN number, we had to rework payroll, and we had to do that in time to not miss the payroll that was coming up. And they also pay weekly, so it's not like I had 2 weeks. So I was neck deep in accounting and in our bookkeeper's office most of the first week, and getting the bank accounts all set up. And there were a lot of accounting things I wanted to change anyway, because the seller had a lot of that responsibility of some of the bookkeeping. And so I had to figure out how I wanted to change that process to make it more efficient. We were cutting checks for everything, and we didn't do anything ACH or automatic payment, from paying for the slabs of granite to how we pay our light bill. It was all just cut checks. And the seller had to sign all of them. And there was a lot of things like that just needed to be changed and made more efficient. So that was a big, that took a lot more time than I had anticipated. I wanted to be more with the people. And I just spent a lot of time making sure all that stuff was straight.
And over the process, over the last month, what things have you encountered that, maybe you would consider wins or losses?
I think the leadership team, whether or not they're called the leadership team, the people that I had identified as being sort of the mover and shaker of the business, and sales operations, field people, they've actually been very open to change, and they have lots of suggestions. So that was a pleasant surprise. None of those people were stuck in their ways. They were all ready to grow beyond where the seller had kind of brought them. And so we're having, I think, a win for the team, and for the company, and even for me, is like their willingness to actually meet and talk through things, and have a strategy session. And it's been fun to kind of take their minds from just being tactical to having like a strategy discussion. And so that's been really fun, and I think it's been a huge win because now they feel like they're being heard, they have a voice, there's somebody that can affect change now, in a way that makes sense. So that's been a really big win, is just people coming alongside of all this change and being willing to change. There's other wins too, but that was a big one.
And if you were to give advice to someone else in your position in the future, what advice would you give them as far as overcoming obstacles?
So I think it's unique depending on the business you're buying. Like every business is going to be a little bit different obstacle to kind of overcome right out of the gate. I think for me, we had a little bit of a culture problem. I think lack of like direction and strong leadership in different departments kind of hurt them. And so I had a lot of people telling me things about other people. And what I learned very quickly was to not form opinions about someone until I actually talked to that person. So I would encourage people, everyone's going to want your ear, whether for good or ill. And just make sure that you listen with empathy, but also listen with a good dose of like wise discretion, and learning how to navigate what people say versus what you actually find out to be true. For example, some people in the company seemed like they weren't team players and seemed a little bit standoffish and rude and had like temper tantrums, but it really was a result of them not being heard, listened to. And the only way to be heard and listened to was to sort of, I know it sounds almost like a child, but like by acting out. And so I think when you give people a forum to actually listen and do something about their major bottleneck, and they believe that you've got their best interests at heart, I think it goes a long way. And I would say just be really careful about how you listen to people, and what you do about it, and make sure that you talk to those people first and form your own opinion. So it's been good for me. I think, yeah, everybody's got a different personality, and I think my personality tends to advocate for people too quickly. So if somebody's like, this person's done this to me, and they kind of act like a victim, I find myself over empathizing, being like, oh, that's terrible. I can't believe that person would do that, blah, blah, blah. And instead of just listening objectively and saying, okay, I want to talk to that person, and then forming your own opinion about what that person is saying. So, and again, that's unique to like our cultural kind of challenge within the company, and other people might find that that's not an issue, but that was for us. So I would just say listen carefully and critically.
And you already mentioned there were some accounting things that you wanted to change. What else that were you able to identify that you wanted to change quickly, or at least concentrate your attention on?
Ooh. So some of the employees had to get sign-offs from the seller for really simple things. And the owner kind of became sort of the hero of the whole office and the shop. And so I tried to empower them a little bit, like, okay, tell me what things you go to the seller for. And they're like, oh, well, if somebody breaks a backsplash or the customer calls in and wants something, then we have to like get approval. We have to do this, that, and the other. And I'm like, well, I think if it's under X amount of dollars, I'm going to empower you to actually make that decision and take care of the customer, with these other caveats in mind. And I would tell people, I've actually told them this. You've got two stakeholders. You've got the customer, right, to take care of our customer/client, but you also have to take care of the company. So try to figure out in your mitigation of whatever the issue is, you've got two people that you kind of need to answer to. So don't just be the hero and give away material and not try to fix it or try to find a way to, make the customer happy without giving them a whole new slab. There are ways to do that and ways to do it in a smart way. And they're like, oh yeah, this is what we would do. And so That was a big thing that we changed right away. Was I just kind of gave people the ability to problem solve and figure it out on their own with like set value system in place that they might not always get right at the end of that equation, but at least they have a structure like, hey, okay, our values are we take care of the customer, and whatever we've worked through with our own personal things that we've talked to the leadership team about. As long as they can work through those things, then at the end of the day, like they can make that decision. There's obviously
Hmm.
limits to that, but a lot of that little stuff, I just like you can take care of that. You don't need me to oversee that right away right now. So
Hmm.
yeah.
And they can like learn and iterate and modify as they go.
Well, that and yeah, they become a lot more creative and they collaborate a lot more. So like
Hmm.
nobody's making decisions in a silo. They start kind of leaning more on each other and they're having more creative headspace to like think about how to actually solve a problem rather than running to someone and make them patch it up real quick and solve it for them. Because nobody really learns in that scenario, and nobody feels empowered.
Right.
Um, so yeah,
Well, Ken, thanks so much for taking the time to talk us through your first month today.
yeah, I'm excited about the future. So it's definitely not without its challenges. But I'm really excited. I think everyone's excited at the company, albeit maybe a little nervous, but we got great attitudes overall. So
Fantastic. Well, looking forward to talking to you again.
yeah, man. Thanks, Ty.
That was Ken Lavertu. He's currently going through our ACE framework, a change management process designed to bring a company from owner operated to management run through focusing on culture, systems, and servant leadership. The ACE framework is only available to people who go through our accelerator program. Space can be limited in the program, so if you'd like to buy your own business and start your own business buying adventure, the first step is to apply for the accelerator program at the link below. Thank you very much for your time.